best gamer's way. I'm Killakestrel, your host as always, and I'm bringing you a new Diablo 3 build guide. In this build guide, we're going to be discussing the one-shot Wave of Light Monk. So, without any further ado, guys, let's get into it. Starting with the skills, guys, the first skill that we need to be taking is Wave of Light with the rune Explosive Light. This is going to be our primary damage dealing ability, and it's what the whole build revolves around. Second, we need to be taking Dash and Strike Blinding Speed. This is so that we can move really quickly around those greater rifts and those normal rifts, get into those packs and destroying them as fast as we can. Third, we need to be taking Epiphany with Desert Shroud. With Epiphany, your increased spirit regen actually helps quite a lot because Wave of Light is a very high spirit cost ability. Also, when you have Desert Shroud on, you increase your damage reduction by 50% when you use Epiphany. So, it's a damage reduction and a spirit regen. Next, we will be taking Sweeping Wind in a Storm. This is so that not only do we increase our spirit regen, but we also deal damage to enemies that are within a certain range of us. But this build is a ranged monk. So the general idea is the Sweeping Wind goes alongside our belt, which we'll be discussing when we get to the gear side of things. And that will then synergize with our Wave of Light and cause a heck of a lot more damage. Okay. Next we take Mystic Ally, Air Ally. Now, Mystic Ally is sorry, a way of increasing our spirit regen, and the ally itself also fights enemies for you and deals 130% of your weapon damage as physical damage per swing. Okay, next we'll be taking Mantra of Salvation with Agility. This is a protective mantra. You increase your all resist, and then when you passively you increase your all resist and your dodge chance, and then when you activate it with the agility rune, you and all nearby enemies also get an extra set of all resist whacked on top. So it's really, really good when you're in groups or when you're solo and you're pushing those greater higher rifts, because those resistances really help out. Also, what you can do for this, if you're finding them easy, say you're just farming T10 normal rifts or anything like that, you can actually swap it out for Mantra of Conviction to increase your damage bonus, and you can use Annihilation Rune with it, so that you get increased movement speed when you kill enemies that are affected by your mantra. But for the time being, we keep it as Mantra of Salvation. Okay, on to the passive skills, guys. The first three, I would say, are necessary. They're 100% necessary. You do not change them whatsoever. Just don't change them. Okay? The first three are Beacon of Ytar, Harmony, and Seize the Initiative. Now, Beacon of Ytar is to reduce all cooldowns. Harmony, this ties into your gear. When you're gearing your secondary stat, you should be looking for a passive resistance, a single element resistance, preferably physical, and then 40% of that you've stacked up then goes into your all resistance. It is a very good damage mitigator. Okay, and then seize the initiative, dealing damage to enemies, but above 75% life. Increase your attack speed by 30% for 4 seconds. Really nice buff. You will really like it. Okay, so on the fourth one, I've got a couple of choices for you. I have as you can see, I've been using Exalted Soul. The Spirit Regen is really helpful for me at the moment because, like I say, Wave of Light is very expensive. But if you can swap out and you're fine with your Spirit Regen for the time being, what you can do if you're pushing those greater rifts is go for near-death experience, meaning that you basically get a second chance if someone tries to kill you. But that can only happen once every 60 seconds. You could also use Sixth Sense to reduce an all-round reduction on non-physical damage taken. So those really nasty arcane elites and poison elites and stuff like that, they do a lot less damage. It's another mitigation thing, but I leave the decision entirely up to you. Moving on to Paragon Points. In your core, you want to be taking movement speed to the cap of 25%. If you're unsure on how to find this, when you go to your inventory screen, click this button here for details, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll find under Adventure, movement speed. Mine is at 25% as it is, but if I didn't have the full set of Paragon Points, it would be at 0. So check that before you put your movement speed points in. You don't want to be wasting points going over the 25% movement speed cap that you could use on things like dexterity and vitality. Next, after movement speed, we take dexterity, then we take vitality, and then we go to maximum spirit. Now, I would say that dexterity and vitality, you should try and keep them as even as possible. As you can see, I've hit 50 on dex. I'm going to go to 50 on vitality. Then I'll do the 50 on spirit, and then I'll go back up to increase dex and vitality by 5 or 10 points as I see fit, as I keep going. Okay, into offense then, guys. In offense, we take crit hit chance, followed by cooldown reduction, followed by attack speed, followed by crit hit damage. Now, the crit hit chance is for obvious reasons. The reason that I've left crit hit damage till last is because even though you're causing all those crits, and yes, you want to be causing a lot more damage, the build itself actually has a very high damage range, so the crit hit chance actually procs nice sets of crits for you anyway. So crit hit damage isn't as important as the attack speed or the cooldown reduction of your abilities. Into defense, guys, we are going, as always, resist all, armor, life percentage, and life regen. Nice and easy, don't need to explain it. Resist all, everything's just easily explained. Utility. In utility, guys, we go for resource cost reduction, followed by area damage, followed by life per hit, followed by gold find. And that will sort us out for Paragons. Moving on to the gear that we should be looking for with this build. And a bit of explanation as to how it all works. Okay, our helmet should be Tuzu's Karen's Gaze. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but TZO is kind of a strange word. But this is so that Wave of Light is no longer cast at yourself, and it's a very important item. You cannot run this build without this item, okay? It's so that Wave of Light is no longer cast at yourself, but it's cast at your enemies. So generally, when you cast Wave of Light, you cast it on top of yourself. But with this new helmet, you can cast it anywhere you like. Okay. Next up, we will have shoulders. Now, this build runs on the Sun Wuku set, or the Monkey King's Garb, as the set is actually known. Everybody just knows it as Sun Wuku's. Why not? So we go for Sun Wuku's Balance Shoulders. These are standard shoulders. as you know. I will be going over stats that you should aim for after I've gone over the items themselves. Next up, we have our chest piece, Sunwuku's Soul. We have our amulet, Sunwuku's Shines. We have our hands, Sunwuku's Paws. And our legs, Sunwuku's Leggings, which brings us to the 5 pieces that we need of the Sunwuku's set. Next, we have Pinto's Pride. Wave of Light also now slows enemies by 80% for 3 seconds and deals a certain increase in damage percentage. As you can see, mine is 131%. Okay. So, the reason that we're using, I will go over this one quickly, the reason we're using Sunwuku's is because the 6 set bonus, Lash and Tail Kick, Tempest Rush, and Wave of Light consume a stack of Sweeping Wind to deal an additional 3000% increased damage. That is huge. That is what the build's all about. Building that power of the Wave of Light. So, not only can we now, with the helmet and the set, cast Wave of Light at an enemy, but also when we're using Sweeping Wind, we can then make it deal increased damage. And obviously with the Pinto's Pride, increased damage again. Now we'll move on to the belt. In my opinion, when you are building and gearing a character, a monk, for this particular build, this is the primary item you want to be rushing for, okay? Kairosu's Soul. Sweeping Wind gains 2 stacks every second it does not deal damage to an enemy, okay? Now, that is huge. Without this, your Sweeping Wind will not stack up and continually cast as it is seen here, okay? Get this item first. Recommended first item, Kairosu's Soul, the belt. Okay, once you've done that, then go for Taizu's Karen's Gaze, the helmet. That way you'll be off and running, and then I would suggest working on the set itself. Okay. Next up, guys, we have the boots, the crudest boots. Mystic ally summons 2 mystic allies that fight by your side. So, as you can see, I've got one little air ally here and another little air ally here. These are great, plus the Wave of Light damage that you can roll on these boots is really good. Okay, next we will go for the rings. Now, first ring is Convention of Elements. This ring does not change at all. Just doesn't change. Not in the slightest. Now, the second ring, at the moment, I'm using the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. This is because I've been playing alongside my brother-in-law, Andy, and we're running a 2-man Greater Rift pushing season. Now, if you are a solo player and you want to push your Greater Rift in solo, I would suggest you use Convention of Elements with a Unity on your character as well as a Unity on your follower. That way, the damage mitigation that you will receive is exponential. It's amazing. You just shouldn't go against it. Okay? If, on the other hand, you are farming in normal rifts, just trying to get some blood shards together or gear together or whatever you're doing in normal rifts or greater rifts, as long as you're not pushing, you can swap out that Unity and have an Avarice band in case. Okay? But out of the 3, it's entirely up to you, but if you're pushing solo greater rifts on your own, recommended using Unity. Okay, moving on from the rings, we will now go to the weapons. Most important weapon is this one here, Kairosu's Blade. Increase the damage of Wave of Light by 150% when the initial impact of your Wave of Light hits 3 or fewer enemies. The damage is then increased by a growing percentage. Mine is 234%. Obviously this can get better. It can go up to 250%. So it's not a bad roll. This is a must-have weapon, guys. This one is a must-have. And the secondary weapon, you want to be using the Crystal Fist, because the amount that you dashing strike around, the damage mitigation from this and damage reduction from this item is, without a doubt, irreplaceable. Absolutely irreplaceable. Okay? So, moving on from the items and the reason why we take the items, we will then go to item stat to aim for. So, at this point, you would have leveled your character up, got all the gear, as you can see here, all this gear. Okay? And then you're looking to improve your character's gear to make your character be able to push those greater rifts. Okay. So, for your helmet, you want to be looking for dexterity, followed by crit hit chance, a socket, and vitality. Okay? As you can see, mine isn't perfect rolled. Okay? Absolutely not perfect rolled. The increase to wave of light damage is a given. 100% will always roll and you cannot re-roll it, so do not worry about it. Okay? Moving on to the shoulders. The shoulders, you want to be looking for dexterity, vitality, cooldown reduction, area damage, and all resist. As I say, my gear that I'm using at the moment, I'm at the stage where I am now building for better stats on my gear, and I'm at that part in the season, and this is the part that you guys would be at as I'm describing what I'm looking for and what you should be looking for with this build. Moving on to hands, the stats for the hands are dexterity, crit hit damage, crit hit chance, vitality, and then area damage. Okay? As you can see, my gloves are pretty spot on. They just need the area damage and need to be ancient. Of course, we're always looking for ancients. Okay, moving on to the amulet, guys. We want a socket, which is always 100% guaranteed with Sunwalker Shrines. And then we want to be looking for crit hit damage, crit hit chance, and fire damage percentage. The reason for the fire damage percentage is wave of light, explosive light is fire damage. Okay. Next, we go for the chest piece. We are looking for dexterity, 3 sockets, vitality, reduced damage from elites, and then preferably a secondary resistance. You can see that mine is lightning resist at the moment, but preferably you would want physical resistance, because a lot of the damage in rifts and greater rifts and from the rift guardians themselves is physical rather than anything else. Okay? And when you're stacking these physical resists, don't forget with the passive ability of Harmony, 40% of that is going to your all resist anyway. Okay. Moving on from the chest, we have the belt. On the belt, we are looking for dexterity, vitality, secondary resist, preferably physical, as always, and armor. As you can see, my belt's pretty good. I like it. And moving on to the wrists, the Pinto's Pride, we're looking for dexterity, crit hit chance, fire damage, and vitality. Moving on to your first ring, which is the Convention of Elements, you're looking for a socket, crit hit damage, crit hit chance, damage range, and dexterity. Mine needs improving a lot. I got it on a different character and haven't managed to find one with this one yet, strangely enough. Moving on to the second ring, you would like a socket, crit hit damage, followed by crit hit chance, followed by damage range, followed by dexterity. As you can see, My gear is not primary built for stats yet, but like I say, I am working on it as I speak. Okay, moving on to legs, guys. We were looking for dexterity, vitality, 2 sockets, secondary resist of physical, and armor. Okay, now obviously, as you can see, as I'm telling you which they are, I will be putting them on the screen as well. And they are literally in that order. That is the order you're looking for them. Okay, so dexterity over vitality over the 2 sockets, over the secondary resist of physical, over armor. Okay? And next we have the boots. Boots, we're looking for dexterity, wave of light damage, vitality, secondary resistance of physical, and then armor. As you can see, I'm still, still looking for decent boots. Okay, moving on to the Kairoshu's blade. We are looking for a high damage range, followed by dexterity, followed by a socket, but the socket you should only put on your weapon from a Ramaldi's gift. Hence, neither of my weapons have them because I haven't found a Ramaldi's gift yet. So, yeah, it's the best way to get a socket, rather than re-roll for a socket, or if you get one with a socket, re-roll the socket out for another statistic that is required. That way you can add a socket at a later point when you find the Ramaldi's gift. After the socket, you're looking for cooldown reduction, followed by area damage. And it's exactly the same on the Crystal Fist. High damage range, dexterity, the socket from Ramaldi's gift, the cooldown reduction, and then the area damage. Okay. So, that is the gear and the stats that you should be looking for on your gear to make this build at its fullest potential. Moving on to the cube, guys. Moving on to the cube, guys. In our weapon slot, I have a couple of choices for you. As you can see, at the moment, I've got the Envious Blade in there. I was just messing around with it and testing it out in a couple of normal rifts with my brother-in-law. Now, generally speaking, to push greater rifts, I would suggest that you use the good old furnace. Or you can use Ingom for the cooldown reduction. Or you can use the Envious Blade, which is what I did have in there. Or, one that I haven't got yet, you could use the Incense Torch of the Grand Temple for a reduced spirit cost of Wave of Light by 50%, which would be actually huge with this build. All are very viable. Personally, it's between the Incense Torch and the Furnace as to what I will be using to push greater rifts towards the end of the season. But I have given you the options. It's entirely down to you. Have a play, see what you think. In armor, guys, I would suggest using the Cinder Coat for reduces the resource cost of fire skills by 30%. Or if you're farming normal rifts, you can also whack in the Nemesis Braces. Okay, and in the ring slot of the cube, guys, you don't want to be using anything other than the Royal Ring of Grandeur to hit the 6 set passive of the Sun Wukus. Okay, moving on to Legendary Gems. Moving on to Legendary Gems. Legendary Gems are as follows: Bane of Trapped, Bane of Stricken, and the Z Stone of Vengeance. This one is important for this build. Like I said, this build is a ranged monk, okay? That's the whole point of having the helmet and having the belt to increase the damage, and everything's all building. As you can tell, everything builds the power of the wave of light, and the helmet makes you cast it further away from you. With the Z Stone of Vengeance, damage you deal is increased by a certain percentage for every 10 yards between you and the enemy hit, to a maximum of a certain percentage. Okay, and that's an increase at 50 yards. Okay, and then also when it's rank 25, you can get 20% chance to stun enemies for a second. That's not the important bit. The important bit is the increase to damage the further away the enemy is. Okay, so if you are running around and in the top corner, say where my profile picture is, you see a enemy elite pack, and then you cast Wave of Light at them, the distance between your character and where you're casting Wave of Light builds up more damage via the Z Stone of Vengeance. Okay? Standard gems. In our helmet, we're looking for a diamond. In chest and legs, we're looking for emeralds. Preferably, you want to be looking for flawless royals in all your gem slots. For obvious reasons, it's the best gem you can make. But use what you have available to you until you can build your way up to them via your jeweler. Okay? In your weapon slots, when you get sockets in your weapons with Romaldi's gift, you want to be sticking flawless royal emeralds straight in there for the crit hit damage that it gives. It's just insane. It's 160% crit hit damage per gem, and there's 2 gems because you're dual wielding. Your damage goes through the roof. It's crazy. Okay. Last but not least, guys, for this build, I will go over the follower recommendation. Okay, I personally only recommend the Templar because his ability to help with your spirit regen, he heals you, he does a lot of culling the herd, so to speak. He's got a lot of mitigation where he is. Okay, so in your skill at level 5, you take heal, obvious reasons. Level 10, you take intimidate, because intimidate, when he hits enemies, it will proc your Bane of Trapped, and that's always more damage. At level 15, you take charge, also adds on to more damage for Bane of Trapped. And then at level 20, you take Inspire for the passive spirit regen. Okay, 10% spirit regen is huge. Okay, 4 items, guys. Now, I don't have a relic for my Templar yet. I'm still working on trying to find one. But the relic that you want to be going for is called the Enchanting Favor. The passive of this relic is that your follower cannot die. This is extremely important. Okay? The reason that it is so important is because the primary ring you'll be using is the Unity. Also equipped one with you when you are pushing the Greater Rifts. Unity has a very big damage reduction when you and your follower are wearing it. If your follower then cannot die on top, it just goes through the roof. Because if you don't have the relic with the Unity and your follower dies, the Unity then stops working until your follower recovers. Okay? In ring slot 2, mine's not correct, as you can see on screen. I would recommend either the Belcathos Wedding Band or the Negla Ring as secondary choices. I didn't have either of these, and the best in slot is recommended as the Oculus Ring because of the fact that it's got such a high damage counterpart to it, that the Templar procs really nicely, and the damage increase from the Oculus Ring is just hugely beneficial. For an amulet, best in slot is the S of Joanne. As you can see, I have that, and that is also because the passive ability that the Templar can proc, which is chance to pull enemies towards your target and slow them by 80%, is huge. That then procs the damage from your Bane of Trapped, which will then proc from Bane of Stricken, and so on and so on. And yes, the Templar uses this one very well indeed. If you, however, do not have the S of Joanne at that precise moment in time, you can, however, use Overwhelming Desire. Now, Overwhelming Desire, same deal, just a little bit different. The only problem with the Overwhelming Desire, even though it has a 35% damage increase, which is really, really good, it's set back by having a very low proc rate and its inability to affect Rift Guardians. Okay? So, although the damage increase is huge, I would recommend to have the S of Joanne rather than the Overwhelming Desire, because the proc rate of the S of Joanne is a lot higher and you'll get a lot more use out of it. Okay, moving on to a weapon for your follower. Mine is not right. You want to be using the Thunder Fury. It is the best in slot. If you don't have this, then the Enjang Du is a very good alternative, but as you can see, I didn't have either of these because I've been having great luck with loot. Okay, I'm moving on to shields. Mine still is not correct, but you would like to be looking for the Lidless Wall or the Defender of Westmarch. They are very, very good to be putting in that slot. Now, that being said, if you have a Justice Lantern, the shield that you should use instead of the Lidless Wall would be the Freeze Deflection. Okay? Because if you then pair the Freeze Deflection with a Justice Lantern ring in your secondary slot, the stun and block percent chance that you receive is huge. And you may say, well, I'm not using this shield, so why would I care about block percent chance? But it's your follower's block percent chance, which then affects you via Unity. So, there is that to take into consideration. But if you don't have the Justice Lantern, I would suggest going for the Lidless Wall. Okay. When it comes to sockets for your followers' items, such as the amulets, the rings, the weapon, etc., etc., you want to be stacking just rubies. Flawless rubies in the shield, amulets and rings, and then obviously you want to be going for the emerald in the weapon for the crit damage. So, there we are. That is the one-shot monk build. Wave of Light build. In this video, as you know, we've discussed everything from the skills to the gear to the stat priorities that you're looking for to the follower and the Kanai's Cube and the gems that you'll be using with this build. I hope you enjoyed this build guide, guys. Please don't forget, leave a like rating, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share the video. It really helps out a lot. Please stay tuned for more upcoming videos on my channel. And I am now currently live streaming to twitch.tv. I will leave a link in the description below. Come check it out, hang out with me, and we'll have a bit of fun playing Diablo 3. Until I see you again, happy gaming!